In today's episode, I'm absolutely excited to be speaking to Rosalean Batool. She is a wealth hypnotist, multi-six-figure Muslim WLC. She not only wears the hijab, but she actually wears the niqāb, yet works with women and talks about such sensitive topics such as feminine energy and sexual energy. Let's speak to Rosalean and find out how she changed her life by changing her mindset. Let's find out. Welcome. This is Gullkhan, your money mindset expert. And today I'm really excited. So someone that I found on the internet myself. I saw her, fell in love with her, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to have her on my podcast. So welcome, Rosalean Batool. Welcome.
Woohoo! Thank you so much, Gull, for having me on. I'm Rosalean Batool, and I'm a wealth hypnotist. I help female CEOs conquer burnout in less than an hour so that they can experience more pleasure, purpose, and profit in their lives.
Fantastic. And that's how I came across, because I think we were friends on Facebook for quite some time. And then I saw a few of your posts and I thought, my God, you're such an interesting character. And then we exchanged some messages and I realized, oh my God, I have to speak to this lady. So Rosalean, tell us how, you are, for those of you who are listening to this on the podcast who cannot see you, obviously if you're watching on YouTube, then you understand what I'm talking about. But you're the only the niqāb wearing, not just hijab wearing. The hijab is wearing with the headscarf. You are niqāb wearing, so you cover your face too, and all we can see is your eyes. So you're the only niqāb wearing, Muslim woman that I know that talks about the kind of concepts that you do, which is about feminine energy, about sexual energy. And I thought that was very liberating. So talk us through, how did you come here? And then from our conversations, you were, you're born into a Muslim family, but you grew up agnostic and you found your faith again, and to the point where you are now wearing the niqāb. So talk us through your journey. You've had a quite interesting journey. How did you find your faith, and how did you end up now in Gambia?
Okay, I love it. So let me start with my faith, actually. So my mom was born a Muslim, but then when she left the religion and she decided to practice Christianity. So all my life, I grew up very spiritual, okay? We believed in something, but we didn't know what to call it. So we went to church, we were in Jehovah's Witness, went through Hinduism, we went through atheism as well. And then we just decided to okay, I don't believe in one religion. We just believe in spirituality. So we believe in a higher power and we leave everything to him. And then when I was studying law at university, I transferred from where I was in my hometown. I moved away from home and I ended up in Northampton. And then I came across some Muslim girls. And mind you, when I was a kid, I used to get bullied a lot by Muslim kids. So I used to hate, I'll be honest, I used to hate Islam. Islam was the only religion I chose not to look into, simply because of the children that I grew up with, that they were very nasty towards me. So when I got to university,
can I ask you, why were they nasty? Did they think that you were not practicing Muslim? Is that why they were nasty, or they're nasty for some other reason?
There's two reasons. Because I didn't grow up with my dad, so they always asked me, where's your dad? And I was in a predominantly South Asian community, so having a father figure was very important. So all of my friends had fathers around, but I didn't. And secondly is because they thought I was South Asian, but I'm not. I'm Persian. So they couldn't understand why I didn't practice Islam. I didn't understand it. And I always say to them that I had this theory when I was a child that hell is on earth and heaven is when you die. So I always say that to them. They're like, oh my God, you are not Muslim. I'm like, what? I'm not Muslim. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, wow.
So I had that trauma. I had that trauma growing up. So when I came to university, and mind you, I had Muslim friends, but they weren't practicing. So I used to think Islam was a culture. I didn't think it was a religion. It was really, right? Because people used to drink, have boyfriend and girlfriend, but then when it came to Ramadan, they became holy. So I was like, it must be a culture.
I've seen those as well. No alcohol during Ramzan. And no, we don't touch each other. I don't see my boyfriend. I don't see my girlfriend during Ramzan. And then everything goes back to normal afterwards. I've seen those examples.
I was like, this must be a culture. This must be a culture. So when I went to university, I came across these girls and they were covered up, and I was wearing a short dress. I was wearing a mini skirt, and I felt so embarrassed. I was like, they're going to ask me if I'm Muslim, and I'm going to say yes. because then they won't bully me. Because I just thought they're going to come and bully me, because I had that trauma when I was a child.
Wow.
So they were like, no, like, you know, how are you? They were like, salam alaikum. I was like, yeah, wa alaikum salam. They were like, oh, you Muslim? I was like, yeah, I'm Muslim. And they're like, okay, I want to invite you around for dinner. I was like, okay, cool, great. So I went around for dinner, and then I was like, why do you ladies cover? Why do you wear hijab? Like, why do you cover yourself from men? Because I used to be a model. So I was like, you know, liberation is being able to wear whatever you want to wear, like be free, be naked. And they looked at me, they were like, we don't cover for men, we cover for God. God told us to cover ourselves, and we obey him because we want God's pleasure. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I can't explain what happened. It's like I had a pang of jealousy come over me. I was like, why though? Like, I was just so jealous that they were so free in the mind. Because when they were talking to me, they weren't being shackled by beauty standards. They weren't trying to fit in the ideal I was trying to fit in. They weren't. So I was like, I'm so jealous of their confidence. So they pointed to the ayah in the Quran about the hijab. So I went away, I started studying it. And then I came across the hadith where when that ayah was revealed, the women tore their aprons and put it over their face. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he remained silent. So for me, that was just like a clear cut. That's a woman's interpretation to hijab, not a man's. So, and then I put my shahada there and then. And I wore niqāb straight away. So I've been wearing, yes, I've been wearing niqāb since I was 21.
Oh, mashallah. So that's go ahead.
In my dorm, like I moved away to Northampton, and I wore the niqāb. I was away from my family. I lived in the dorm, so on campus, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna wear my niqāb, and I came out wearing niqāb the next day.
What a transformation! It took one day for that to happen. I mean, that's just subhanallah.
Literally.
Wow. Okay, that's just divine source energy working in its divine wisdom. Honestly, that's just amazing. I'm very impressed. And I mean, thinking about it, growing up, my mother was exceptionally religious, and she was very, very modest in her appearance. I've always been modest in my appearance. I've never actually worn anything beyond it. But it was more because that's all I knew, and that's how I grew up with, not because I did it for religious purposes. And I remember when my mom passed away, I was so angry with God. I used to read Surah Yasin and say to God, this is not for me. I don't believe in you. But if you exist, give the swab to my mom. I mean, you do these stupid things. But anyway, I was 21 at the time. So, you know, whatever. And then eventually, I remember I found, I found solace in that's another story for another time. But how literally, coincidental, I just found myself in a bookshop while it was Friday day, Jummah time, and the sandwich bar I wanted to go to, because I still had halal food. So the sandwich I was waiting for, they had gone for Jummah, so I was waiting for them to open, and coincidentally there was a Islamic bookshop next to it. Found myself in there, and I picked up a copy of Bigdal's the translation of the Quran, and that was my journey. So, you know, God calls you as and when you do. And then I ended up, I don't wear the hijab now, but at that point I did actually go down that route, and I ended up being hijab at one point. I wore it for the longest time. I actually, funny enough, I took it off for my for my second husband, which was a stupid thing to do, but anyway, so let's come back to you. So you put on the niqāb, which, by the way, for those who don't know, how long ago was this? Because I just want to put this into context. Nowadays is more common. But so when did you put the niqāb on? How many years ago?
12 years ago. So this was in the height of like there's so much racism and Islamophobia that was going around.
Because the thing is, and I want to highlight that, because since 2001, since the 9/11 happened, Islamophobia has literally just increased. And I remember facing racism at schools, but I remember at that time, because I had hijab around similar times, I remember when I would go on the tube, people would be looking to see if I'm holding onto my bag and if I'm doing anything, and it was ridiculous. I was a lawyer, and I was dressed like a lawyer, like, you know, with my suit and everything, but still they would see, oh, she's wearing hijab, so maybe she's got something in a bag. So this is why I want to say, I didn't even have the niqāb on. You have the niqāb on, so you would have faced a lot with a lot more severity. That's what the point I'm trying to make at. All right. So, but then you found a partner and you got married, I take it.
Yes. So I got married after I reverted. I got married, I think, 2 months after. We were in the same. I studied law too. So yeah, as soon as I reverted, I was like, you know what? I want to get married because I didn't believe in even though I grew up like agnostic, I didn't believe in like having relationships before marriage. Like I wanted to, you know, keep myself pure. So I was like, I need to get married. Like it only makes sense. In my mind, it was just like I want to get married. And my husband then, back then, alhamdulillah, he was a student. We were both studying law. So we decided to get married. And yeah, it helped me. I feel like it helped me with my deen a lot more as well, just being married. I know a lot of women struggle as well. Not saying you have to get married when you become a like when you start going on the path to inspiration and Allah. I actually advise against it, not to get married straight away. Can you find out who you are really? But for
Agreed.
me,
Agreed.
because I'm such like
I agree with that point. Yeah, you need to get to know who
yeah,
you are first.
yeah, and I wish like, a part of me wishes like I didn't get married, but a part of me is so glad that I went through that journey. Like I see both sides of it. So for me personally, I'm the type of person when I get an idea, I have to execute it. Like once I have an idea in my mind, I'm just like, okay, I want to get married, then go get married. That's the type of person I am. But I would say like you don't have to do that. Like find yourself first. But for me, well, going back to the Islamophobia point, actually, I got punched on the bus. I lived in Northampton, right? So Northampton is predominantly white. I think it's only 10% ethnic minorities and like 1% are Muslim. So I lived in a predominantly white area who did not understand Islam. And I remember getting punched on the bus. Like he busted my lip. It was so bad. And even though that happened,
Why
like
do you
for me,
why
it wasn't like
how did that incident occur? Why would that incident occur? Why?
it was just so weird. Like, he was passing me and he started saying the P word. And I was like, I'm not the P word. I'm not P, right? You know
For
how they
those of
try
you who
and
don't,
be
for those of you who don't know, because we do have international clients here, listeners here. P in UK, if you want to refer to South Asians, you call them Pakis, which for those who are ignorant, Paki really means it means pure. So when someone calls me Paki, I'm like, yeah, I know it. Paki actually means pure anyway, and it's an abbreviation for Pakistan. So Pakistan means pure land, and that's where Paki comes from. But in UK, a Paki is used as a racism word, and I remember I heard it quite a lot when I was growing up. It used to irritate me. Now if nobody uses it anymore, that I think they're more PC right now, politically correct. But even if someone does say it, I don't get offended because Paki means pure. But anyway, let me just give a background to people about it. But yeah, that's a piece. It's called a peace slur. Yeah, so they use that against you. Okay.
So yeah, when I was on the bus, I think he was mentally unwell anyway. So I was like, whatever. But he was passing me, he was like talking in my face. And I was like, the bus was crowded as well. So I was just like, I'm not the P word, like, excuse me, like you're in my space. And he just stopped me one in the face. And I was so taken aback. I didn't realize he hit me until after he got off the bus. And I looked around, everyone's just quiet. I'm like, did you guys not see that? Like the guy just hit me in the face. But even though he did that, I didn't feel angry towards him. I didn't feel like, oh my God, it's because of this. I just thought, you know what? It's meant to happen. It's part of my journey. It's not going to change who I am. It's not going to anyway. And it just carried on. Like, so this is the stuff that I went through in my journey of like finding Islam, wearing the niqāb, wearing the hijab. That's like being really firm in my faith. And you know what it is? I give that to my mom. Like when I used to get bullied in school, and my mom still would say to me, go back the next day. She'd be like, you're not taking a day off school. I don't care. Get up. You're not gonna let the bullies win. Don't let these bullies win. The bullies will win when you take a day off school. So get back, go back to school. They will not harm you. And every single time I went back to school, the bullies would just leave me alone. They had nothing to say to me. So I had that mentality of resilience since I was 5. So for me, getting punched in the face on the bus wasn't a big deal. I was just like, okay, it's cool. I'm alive. I'm fine. I'm not going to allow it to affect me. That's just the mindset I have.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I mean that alone, that story alone deserves an episode on the mindset behind it. But okay, so let's move forward. And then how did you go? I mean, did you finish your law degree? Did you become a lawyer? What happened with that?
So I finished my law degree, but I decided not to carry on with law simply because of the fact, like, I don't understand it. I never understood. This is one thing that I didn't understand about law. Like, if a thief enters your home and you harm him, he can sue you.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just like, this is not just. And one of my values is justice. Like, I like being fair, and I like not equality.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I was just like, yeah, no, I don't want to do it. Like, I didn't want to study. I didn't want to practice it and do my bar. So instead, what I did is I studied the CELTA and I became a teacher of non-English. So I thought, you know what, I still want to teach in some way. I still want to educate in some way. Because my goal was to become a human rights lawyer. That was my goal. become a human rights lawyer. And I also wrote a dissertation about how the banning of the niqāb was a breach of human rights. And it was a really good dissertation that I did at university. But even so, I was just like, let me just do teaching. I find myself a better teacher than I could be a lawyer. I'll probably just fight people if I was a lawyer, like physically.
Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. So then how does a teacher become a wealth hypnotist? So that how did you end up from there to here? That's just a complete different world altogether.
Right. So okay, so money, ever since I was a little kid, even though we grew up in poverty, I wouldn't say we were broke. Although like my mom left my dad. We were homeless until I was 14. We didn't really have a home. We were like back and forth from refugees. We all slept on like one mattress on the floor, no carpets. That's the kind of lifestyle I live. No carpets, no wallpaper. It was just like a bare home, just food to eat, and that's it. So even though I was living that kind of lifestyle, my mom never raised me to believe that we're poor. That's just
Okay.
my mom used to make me read books. So the first book I ever read, she actually gifted to me on my 14th birthday, was The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz.
Oh,
And this book,
wow.
my mom trained me to read. She actually used to give me the dictionary and give me a few words and tell me to write sentences with big words. So I've been like, my mom used to tell me be intellectual. Like the goal is to be intellectual and be intelligent, emotionally intelligent. So I've been reading since I was 5 or 6. I was reading like big theories, like encyclopedias. Do you remember Britannia? The Britannia Encyclopedia?
We had it.
Oh,
We had that in our home too.
I love that book. I still have it to this day. Oh my gosh. I used to go into a world. It was just I used to escape in those books. So when I was 14, my mom gave me that book. I still have the book. And I was like so astounded by the way millionaires think. They don't think in deficit. They don't say I can't afford it. They think big. They absolutely think big. And so I've always had this mentality of thinking big. And even when I was younger, I remember saying to my mom, I'm going to be a millionaire. That's it. That's my goal, to be a millionaire. I had the concept, even though I was poor, like we were living in poverty, my concept was thinking big. I want to be rich. I want a private jet. I want a private island. I want to be a millionaire. That's it. That's who I want to be. So taking that from the teaching, when I was teaching, my mom passed away, unfortunately. And I was like in Saudi. She was in the UK. So I wasn't there when she passed away. But the saddest thing was that after I buried her, a week later, they fired me for my job because I took time off in Saudi. It was so, yeah, girl, it was horrendous.
You're working in Saudi at the time?
Yeah, I was working in Saudi as a teacher, as an English teacher.
Okay.
So I took time off and then I came back. Obviously, I'm still grieving. And I think I took like a few days off. And in Saudi, if you work there, if anyone who's worked in Saudi is a teacher, you are only allowed 3 days off in the whole year for illness, bereavement, yes, or whatever. The 3 days off in the whole year. So that was basically what I had to face. And then a week later, I got given the email that they don't need me anymore. And I was pregnant with my third child. I was 3 months pregnant. So I was going through all of that. And it sparked something within me that no one really cares about you if you don't care about yourself. Like even though in my heart, I was so angry because I had given up time to spend with my mom because I was teaching. So I was like, I couldn't go back to the UK. They wouldn't allow me to leave. Like you have to get I forgot what it's called, but you have to get consent to leave. So they wouldn't give me that. And I was just so angry. I had so much frustration towards it. But I realized, you know what? It's not their fault. It's my fault. I have to take responsibility for it, not in the sense of blaming myself, but I have to take accountability in the sense of like I chose to go to Saudi. I wanted to live my dreams, and yeah, in the end I had to sacrifice. That's the way I saw it. I had to sacrifice something in my attachments to the dunya, and that was my mom. And unfortunately, even though she died when I wasn't there, we had such a great relationship, and nothing can take that away, no matter how angry I was. So I got sacked, got fired, came back to the UK. I had nowhere to live. I had 3 kids. I was heavily pregnant. And I was just like, okay.
Was your partner with you? Was your partner with you at the time?
No, we were going through a divorce then. So he wanted to stay in Saudi.
So you were going to have your third child and you came back without a partner and you're going through a divorce same time. Wow. Okay. That's a lot of emotional trauma all at once while being pregnant as well.
Yeah, it was huge. Like I don't remember my third pregnancy at all. I literally don't remember. It's a blur. I can't remember it. I can't even remember the labor. All I remember was that I was in the water at the hospital and I gave birth in the pool, and that's it. But yeah, I went through all of that without a partner. I was by myself. I had my friends, so I had two of my best friends. They were amazing. They really like helped me. They supported me emotionally as much as they could. But for me personally, I was like, how did I get here? Like the way I am, I believe everything is a result. Actions like cause and effect, right?
Yeah.
So what happened? Like the way I looked at it is like, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? What steps did I not take? And I realized that I wasn't living my true, authentic life. I wasn't being really myself. I was in a relationship that was not me. Like, mashallah, the guy is good. He's a lawyer. He's amazing. He's the father of my 3 children. But it wasn't me. We weren't compatible. But I was forcing myself to stay in a relationship where I wasn't compatible with a guy, right? And then secondly, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I really wanted to be a millionaire. And I never saw myself making a lot of money in a 9-to-5 job anyway.
No one does. No one does that, darling.
I'm saying to myself, I want to be rich, but then I'm giving my time to an employer who doesn't care about me. And I'm just living this rat race, lying to myself. Really what it was, I realized I had been lying to myself for many years. And that's when it clicked. I was like, oh my God, like who I really am is a person who loves to talk about money, who loves to help people. I can easily help heal people, like the way they think about themselves in like an hour. I'm very good at that. But I was denying myself. I was denying my gifts. So it's when I started owning my gift of who I am, that's when I became a wealth hypnotist and started helping people become rich and heal from childhood traumas as well.
But did you go through some sort of training, or did you just realize you have those gifts? Because obviously you have to work out how to help people. And yeah. If I think about my own journey, I do energy healing and energy clearings, but I had no idea what energy clearing or energy healing was until I went down the rabbit hole. And by the way, before I got here, I went through all sorts of modalities. I did NLP and I did EFT, and then I did intuitive life coaching. There were so many things I did until I got to this point where I thought, okay, this is who I am, and that's how I help my clients. So there has to be a journey which unfolds your inner gifts as well. So can you talk us through how you found your gifts?
Yeah, so I studied NLP when I was 18, actually. I studied CBT, NLP when I was 18. 19, I studied Ho'oponopono. So I had all these modalities from when I was young, but I forgot about them because I became a Muslim and I thought, okay, let me just be a wife, a mother, and maybe become a teacher. So I really like shifted my identity to believe that being a Muslim woman meant like I couldn't have dreams. That's what happened to me. But in my mind, I was like, because I'm a Muslim woman, I have to give up my dreams and I just have to be a good wife, a good mom, and be a good citizen for my children and like, let them
and live vicariously through your children. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the lie that I was living. Like, I can't put for me personally, it was like, how dare I put that pressure on my children? Like, for them to.
That's horrible. It's horrible, horrible. Yeah.
I had all these dreams for my son, like he's gonna be an engineer and all this stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on with me? So yeah, I studied NLP, CBT, Ho'oponopono. I'm actually Polynesian. So Ho'oponopono comes from my culture. I'm Persian Polynesian. My dad's side is Polynesian, my mom's side is Persian. So this, like, all this intuitive stuff comes from my dad's side. They're very spiritual. So when I learned this, I was, oh my God, this is part of who I am. And I studied hypnotherapy as well. That's the 4 modalities that I studied. But then what I did is I kind of like put them all together, and I was like, I already know what to do. I'm very intuitive. When someone talks to me, I can understand what's going on in their subconscious mind. I pick out words. I'm very good at looking at someone's aura and seeing what's stuck in their energy field. I'm very good at that. So for me, it was just like, I don't need to learn this stuff. I already know it, but it just sparked. When I studied hypnotherapy, it just sparked the chair. I was like, oh my God, I already know this. Oh yeah, I studied NLP. I already studied CBT. I already studied I know all this stuff. Like, girl, put it to use. Let's get going. That's literally what happened. I was like, Rose, you know everything. You know what to do. All you have to do, make a video, share on Instagram, and just keep going. So that's basically what happened in my journey.
The quick question here then, how did you open up and have the confidence to talk about sexual energy and feminine energy online as well? Because that's what really struck me about you was, here I am, and I have difficulty talking about sexual energy, and I do talk about it in my workshops. But generally, I stay clear of that topic too, because I'm not comfortable talking about it on the online space. And I know how important it is, but I talk about feminine energy, but I would never talk about sexual energy. Do you see what I mean? It's not it's a topic that even me, who's the ultra confident individual, talks about very openly. I will on a one-to-one basis, but not on an online platform. But I saw you talk about it so openly and with such authenticity. It really struck a chord with me, and that's hence when I first reached out to you. Where did you study that, or how did you become aware of that, and how did you get the confidence to be able to speak about it with the niqāb, with the hijab, which I think is just so liberating? Because most people, when they look at a woman with hijab, forget niqāb. Right? Because if you're wearing a niqāb, you're definitely oppressed. You can't possibly talk about sex, right? You can't possibly talk about sex. You can't even think about sex, let alone talk about it. And then that's for women who hijab. Women with the niqāb, you must be really oppressed. So when I see you so openly taking your power and discussing these topics which should be discussed, I want to know how did your mind work, and how did you have the confidence to do that, and so openly and so confidently, and so how do I say this without sounding vulgar? That's very, very important. There was nothing vulgar there. It was very authentic and very real and very raw at times, and sharing your own pain of what traumas you went through and how you overcame and how you help your clients. So talk us through that.
Yeah, so I was sexually abused when I was young. So I understand the shame that comes up when we think about sex and pleasure. And I know so many, I've worked with over 400 women. I probably conducted more abundance rewiring sessions than that. And the main thing that comes up for women is sexual trauma. There's a lot of clients that I work with that all have sexual trauma in some form or way, and it's affecting the way they receive money, the way they communicate, the way they're able to attract better partners or have a better relationship. And a lot of women that I work with literally have never experienced an orgasm. I find that shocking, because when I got remarried, alhamdulillah, my husband's amazing. And because I had to heal a lot of things within me. And I realized one of the biggest things I had was shame around sexual energy. I just thought that women with higher sex drives, women who are ambitious, women who, the ambitions, they have higher sex drives, and higher achievers, they should be ashamed of that part of their lives, because all my clients have that feeling they have a high sex drive, they've never experienced an orgasm, they really want to have more intimate relationship with their husband. And it's so crazy, right? When clients hire me, they hire me for maybe procrastination, but then it ends up, all my sessions end up healing the sexual energy, all of them. It's really mind-blowing for me. So I realized it may be procrastination, it may be hustling, but there's something going on within you that is attached to your sexual energy that's also creating shame. And as women, our feminine energy is to receive as much abundance as possible. That's why we're able to create life in our womb, right? So when our womb is covered in shame, when we think about pleasure in such a bad way, we can't play, we can't take care of ourselves, it's selfish if I put myself first. These are all little micro shifts in our energy that's creating the shame around sex and pleasure. And
I'm saying, as you were saying this, I was going back to when I talk about this, especially when I first started talking about sexual energy. I talk about this and quite intensely in my mastermind, where you cannot possibly receive money if you had sexual trauma. The reason being, if you'll be really bad at saving. So my module savings is all about sexual traumas. That end actually. So debt's all about humiliation. So if you've been humiliated, especially through sexual trauma, then you will accumulate debt. And if you've had if you began to flip the switch, as I say, you internalize unsafe as being the new safe, then you will never allow yourself to have savings, because savings is just a form of financial security when you become an adult. So these are so important when we talk about savings and debt, but even more so because the amount of money you're going to allow yourself, the amount of abundance you're going to allow yourself, in not just in financially, but in relationships too, is dependent on what you think is normal for you. And if you've been through any kind of sexual trauma, or you won't be able to. And I know this because this is a topic that we don't talk about very often at all, especially not as Muslim women. That's not a topic that we should be discussing, because God forbid Muslim women should have sexual desires. And this is quite, honestly, God forbid, we should have sexual desires. And then on top of that, it's funny how people see, I'm glad you just said this, females who are very, because men who are supposed to be seen as, you know, very ambitious and the alpha male, they're known to have high testosterone and really high sex drives. Well, why isn't the same true for females who are very ambitious? Because females who are very ambitious, or alpha females, they tend to have very high libidos and very high sex drives. They may be able to, they may not sleep around, they may be able to, you know, control themselves, but doesn't mean they don't have the sex drive. But we just assume that they're just nuns and they want to be celibate, and they, you know, all they think about is money and their career. That's actually not the case. And being able to own that and accept that, it's a very liberating new age thought, because normally when you think of Muslim women, no, we're only supposed to have sex to have children. What where did that come?
Right.
Where did that come from?
Right. It's shocking, because even when I read the Quran, Allah refers to the wife as a garden. He tells the men, go to your garden. What happens when you water your garden? It just you fertilize your garden, you make the woman happy, and when the woman's happy, and more abundance comes into her life. And like, this goes back to the point that when I was just being a wife and a mother, I was ignoring my high achieving, high ambitious drive. And it's crazy, like you mentioned about debt and savings. I've never been in debt. Even though I've been through sexual abuse, and I've always had savings. Why? I didn't realize this when I was younger. I was in like 3 sales jobs. I had a very high, ambitious goal, but I didn't realize I was using my sexual energy to help me get to those places. So I was a top salesperson in my team, and I was making a ton of money, more than like my friends. And I paid for university as well. I never got into like student loans, and I did all that myself, coming from a single parent home and coming from poverty. So I used sexual energy, and I didn't realize that I learned about it through Napoleon Hill, that I used to have a very high sex drive. I didn't realize that. So I was just using it. Obviously, I didn't have a boyfriend. I was just using that to make money. So
transmuting sexual energy into an abundance. Yeah, that happens. And then that's a very powerful technique. Yeah, I agree. But it's interesting to say that. But I mean, more so, I think I found it very liberating to see, you know, a Muslim woman who's a practicing Muslim woman who wears a niqāb, who's open to discussing these in so-called awkward conversations, and allowing other women, not just Muslim women, but just women in general, to come forward and accept and own their sexuality. Because I think this is a very, very important topic. And far too often, we as women, and by the way, any woman over 40, God, you shouldn't even think about sex. You know, you're older now. Where does that come from? Again, that's these ridiculous things that come through is just mind-boggling. Especially because I'm talking about the South. When I say this, I'm talking about the South Asian culture. And so that's because that's where I come from. So this is in my culture, which includes India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, you know, all of those regions. And it's interesting to see how we are developing the collective consciousness and coming forward, and including Muslim women are coming forward and breaking those taboos and breaking these barriers, which is amazing. So hats off to you, Rosalean. I think honestly you're amazing, and I think you're doing an amazing job. So on this note, we're going to wrap this up. We have to have you back, Rosalean. We have to have a conversation with you on Money Talkies. But for now, tell everybody, where can we connect with you? How can you find you on the internet?
Okay, perfect. So you can find me on Instagram, Rosalean Batool. That's where I'm most active. And right now I have one-on-one sessions, and I have a group program, Sacred Feminine Pleasure, that is all about harnessing your sexual energy and reawakening your femininity. Our next round starts in January, 25th of January. So if you want more information, you can just send me a DM on Instagram.
And if you are listening to us on the podcast, and then the link to Rosalean's IG account and even to her program, she has a link for it. We will share that with you on the show notes. And if you're watching on the YouTube, down below in the description section, we'll have all the links to her as well. Even if you're watching this after January 2023, remember the links will be there, and you can join the next round or whatever else she's doing, on DM of her to find out how she can best support you. I think definitely if you feel that you are stuck in some area of your life, she's definitely the girl to go to. Thank you so much, Rosalean, for being such an amazing guest. We're going to have you back on Mind Talkies, but today it's been such an interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, darling.
And thank you for listening to me and Rosalean today on Friday Feature. We will join you again with another amazing guest, finding out how you and I can build a better business and learn from them, and find out how they change their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gullkhan signing off. Take care and bye for now.